humble house cat performed an unbelievable act of heroism, saving a litter of puppies from what folks thought was the neighbor's mean dog. But when the Reynolds family discovered the real reason behind her bravery, they were absolutely floored. Goldie wasn't just any ordinary cat. Her sunshine-colored fur and bright, playful eyes made her a real standout. But it wasn't just her looks. Goldie had a motherly instinct that went way beyond what you'd expect from a feline. The Reynolds family, that's Susan, David, and their daughter Emily, gave Goldie a home when she was just a tiny kitten. They found her shivering and scared, huddled in a cardboard box near the Piggly Wiggly. Emily, a sweet little girl of about 8, fell head over heels for the kitten and begged her parents to adopt her. Those first few weeks weren't easy. Goldie mostly hid under the sofa, only coming out at night to grab a bite to eat. Emily was incredibly patient, spending hours lying on the floor next to the sofa, gently coaxing the kitten out. Eventually, Goldie started to trust her new family. As Goldie grew, her personality really blossomed. She turned out to be a smart, curious cat. Goldie quickly learned how to open doors, flip light switches, and even bring Emily her school backpack in the mornings. And she showed amazing compassion for other creatures. One time, Emily found a wounded bluebird and brought it home. Goldie immediately took on the role of caregiver. She spent countless hours watching over the box where they kept the bird, trying to keep it comfortable. Thanks to Goldie's care, the bird recovered and eventually flew away. Then, during a big thunderstorm, a nest of baby squirrels fell out of a tree into the Reynolds' backyard. Without hesitation, Goldie ran out into the pouring rain and carefully carried each little squirrel to the shelter of the porch. She kept them warm and safe all night long until the rain stopped and their mama could come back for them. Goldie became a real treasure in the neighborhood. People were always stopping by the Reynolds house to admire the amazing cat. Kids loved playing with her, and she seemed to enjoy the attention right back. Then one day, Susan noticed Goldie acting strangely. The cat kept sitting by the window, staring off into the distance. She lost her appetite and seemed sad. Worried, the Reynolds decided to take her to the vet. The vet had some news that explained everything. Goldie was pregnant. This came as a wave of mixed emotions for the family. Emily was thrilled about the idea of kittens. Susan worried about Goldie's health, while David was already thinking about how they'd make room for the new additions. The next week was filled with preparations. Emily made a cozy nest out of old blankets and pillows. David bought special food for pregnant cats, and Susan kept a close eye on Goldie, making sure she was comfortable and happy. David was already on YouTube, watching videos about how to build a catio and debating the merits of different brands of kitten formula. He was even thinking about getting those little cone hats to put on the kittens, just for the photo ops, of course. The following week was a whirlwind of preparations for the expected arrivals. Emily, bless her heart, transformed her old dollhouse into a deluxe kitten condo, complete with miniature furniture and handmade curtains. David went to PetSmart and bought every kind of kitten toy imaginable, while Susan spent hours researching the best diets for nursing cats and making sure Goldie had a quiet, comfortable place to relax. They were all so excited, dreaming of the pitter-patter of tiny paws and the endless cuddles to come. Then the day finally arrived. Goldie, being the fiercely independent creature she was, decided to handle things on her own terms, disappearing into the quietest corner of the backyard tool shed. The Reynolds family tried to be patient, but the waiting was excruciating. They huddled near the shed, listening for any sign, catching only the occasional soft, reassuring purr drifting from within. Hours crawled by, each one feeling like an eternity. Finally, just as the sun began to set, Goldie emerged from the shed, looking utterly exhausted, yet somehow still carrying herself with a certain grace. But to the Reynolds' absolute astonishment and growing dread, she wasn't followed by a single kitten. David, his face etched with worry, cautiously peeked into the little nest Goldie had fashioned for herself. His heart plummeted like a stone. There, nestled amongst the soft bedding, were 3 tiny kittens, still and heartbreakingly lifeless. They were stillborn, gone before they even had a chance to live. The air hung heavy with unspoken grief. The family called Dr. Miller immediately, their voices trembling with anxiety. When he arrived, he confirmed their worst fears. He explained gently that such a tragedy, while devastating, wasn't uncommon, especially with younger cats having their first litter. But his words offered little comfort. Goldie was inconsolable. She refused to leave the nest, spending every moment licking and nuzzling the lifeless kittens, desperately trying to warm them, as if she could somehow breathe life back into their tiny bodies. The Reynolds were at a complete loss, feeling helpless in the face of such profound sorrow. They tried everything they could think of to ease their beloved pet's pain. They offered her favorite toys, tempting treats, and endless affection, but Goldie remained apathetic, lost in her own world of grief. Her bright eyes, once full of mischief and playful curiosity, were now clouded with a deep, unbearable sadness. A week dragged by, each day more difficult than the last. Finally, Goldie emerged from the tool shed, but the vibrant, energetic spark that had always defined her was gone, replaced by a heavy, listless silence. She wasn't the same cat they knew and loved. She became quiet and withdrawn, spending hours sitting by the living room window, staring blankly into the distance, lost in her own private thoughts. Emily, her heart aching for her furry friend, tried to coax Goldie into playing, but the cat just couldn't muster the energy. Susan and David grew increasingly distressed, their concern for Goldie growing with each passing day. They consulted Dr. Miller again, desperately searching for any advice, any method to help their cat overcome her crushing sadness. Emily, in her own innocent way, even started singing lullabies to Goldie, hoping that the soothing melody of her voice might somehow penetrate the feline's grief and offer a small measure of comfort. Their home, once filled with laughter and playful energy, was now filled with a heavy, somber silence. Then, on one sweltering summer afternoon, as if a switch had been flipped, everything changed in an instant. Emily, seeking refuge from the stifling heat, was playing quietly in the backyard when she heard a faint, unusual sound coming from beyond the old wooden fence that separated their property from the abandoned lot next door. Her curiosity piqued, she cautiously went to investigate, and there, in the tall grass, she saw it. Goldie, her eyes shining with a newfound purpose, was carefully carrying something in her mouth. A tiny, whimpering black puppy. Emily was stunned, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. She ran back to the house, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and disbelief, shouting for her parents to come and see. The Reynolds family watched in absolute amazement, mouths agape, as Goldie gently placed the puppy on the cool grass, nuzzling it tenderly as if it were her own long-lost kitten. They had no idea where the puppy had come from or what to do. David, ever the pragmatist, suggested calling animal control or taking it to the local animal shelter. Susan hesitated, her heart tugged by Goldie's unwavering affection. Seeing the loving maternal way Goldie cared for the puppy, she couldn't bear the thought of separating them, not after everything Goldie had been through. While her parents debated, Emily, acting on pure instinct, ran inside and grabbed an old wicker basket and a soft, well-worn baby blanket. She carefully placed the puppy in the basket, creating a cozy little nest. Without a moment's hesitation, Goldie jumped in, snuggling close to the tiny creature, her purr rumbling contentedly. At that tender, heartwarming moment, Susan and David were deeply touched by the extraordinary bond forming before their eyes. They exchanged a look, their decision made without a single word. They would let the puppy stay, at least for a little while. The following days were a whirlwind of activity and mounting anticipation. The Reynolds put up found puppy flyers all over the neighborhood, hoping to find the puppy's owner, but no one responded. Meanwhile, Goldie's devotion to the little one was remarkable. She stayed by its side constantly, gently licking it, keeping it warm and showering it with affection. Emily was amazed to observe that Goldie had even begun nursing the puppy, despite their obvious differences. Incredibly, Goldie's milk seemed to agree with the puppy, nourishing it and helping it grow stronger each day. Dr. Miller, the family vet, was astounded by this unusual occurrence, explaining that while rare, it was indeed possible for a cat to nurse a puppy, especially if the cat had recently given birth herself. Goldie fed the puppy religiously every 2 hours, even waking in the middle of the night to tend to its needs, demonstrating a level of maternal dedication that was truly inspiring. Then, on the third morning after the first puppy surprise, Goldie vanished again, disappearing without a trace. The Reynolds, now accustomed to Goldie's little adventures, didn't think much of it, assuming she'd simply gone for a leisurely stroll around the neighborhood. However, when she finally returned a few hours later, she was carrying something else in her mouth. Something that would change their lives forever. Yet another puppy in her mouth. This newcomer was slightly bigger than the first, sporting the same dark velvety fur. Goldie walked confidently to the basket, placing the new pup gently beside its sibling and resuming her care with the same tenderness and dedication. Now, the Reynolds family was completely baffled. Where on earth was Goldie finding these puppies, and more importantly, why was she bringing them home? David began to suspect that a neighborhood dog had recently given birth and for some unknown reason wasn't able or willing to care for her pups. He imagined a poor, abandoned mama dog struggling to survive, while Goldie, driven by her powerful maternal instincts, was stepping in to fill the void. Susan, always the more cautious one, thought about asking the neighbors if any of them had a dog that had recently had puppies. Before they could even begin their investigation, Goldie arrived with a third puppy, then a fourth, and finally a fifth. By the end of the week, their cozy suburban home had been transformed into a bustling sanctuary for 5 tiny, dark-furred puppies, all under Goldie's watchful eye. The scene was both heartwarming and utterly chaotic. Goldie displayed remarkable resourcefulness in caring for her unusual brood. She kept them clean, warm, and constantly showered them with affection. Despite her tireless efforts, her milk simply wasn't enough to adequately nourish all 5 pups. They were growing, and their appetites were growing with them. Recognizing this reality, Emily, wise beyond her years, started supplementing Goldie's milk with a nutritious puppy formula, feeding each pup from a bottle with gentle care. It was as if Goldie understood the need for supplemental feeding, patiently waiting her turn and then delicately licking their faces clean after Emily finished, as if finalizing the feeding process. Word of Goldie's extraordinary foster parenting quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. People began to notice the unusual activity at the Reynolds house, and soon the story of the cat who was raising a litter of puppies became the talk of the town. Some neighbors praised Goldie, hailing her as a champion, a true testament to the power of maternal love. Others, however, displayed a mixture of apprehension and suspicion. Mrs. Henderson, a senior woman who lived across the street, openly expressed her doubts. She claimed to have seen Goldie skulking around late at night, wearing a dubious expression, and started spreading rumors that the cat was stealing puppies from unsuspecting dog owners. She even suggested that Goldie might be dangerous, a threat to the neighborhood pets. In stark contrast, Mr. Garcia, the friendly proprietor of the local bakery, was completely captivated by Goldie's story. He would bring fresh baked bread and pastries for the Reynolds family and the puppies every day, believing that such a remarkable family deserved a special treat. He saw Goldie as a symbol of hope and compassion, a reminder that even in the most challenging times, love and kindness could prevail. Kids from all over the neighborhood constantly requested to visit the Reynolds house to see the unconventional family. Emily, beaming with pride, would happily show them around, boasting about how wonderfully Goldie looked after the puppies, narrating each baby's unique story as if they were her own furry brothers and sisters. Still, not everything was going smoothly. Caring for 5 rambunctious puppies and a demanding cat quickly became overwhelming for the Reynolds family. The cost of puppy food, formula, vet bills, and endless supplies of cleaning products was steadily increasing, putting a strain on their budget. Their once orderly home was now constantly in a state of controlled chaos, filled with the sounds of barking, yipping, and the occasional frustrated meow. David and Susan started to disagree on the best course of action. David, feeling the financial pressure, argued that they needed to find homes for the puppies as soon as possible. Susan, however, couldn't bear the thought of separating them from Goldie, especially after everything they had been through. The tension in the house was palpable, and the strain began to take its toll on their relationship. The discord wasn't confined to the Reynolds household. It extended to the entire neighborhood. Some neighbors, fueled by Mrs. Henderson's rumors, started discussing the need for animal control services, fearing that Goldie could pose a threat if she were genuinely stealing puppies from other dogs. David began to feel like they were under constant surveillance, with neighbors gossiping and pointing at their windows. He even noticed a man with a camera snapping photos of their home from his car, adding to their growing sense of unease. Susan, feeling the weight of the community's scrutiny and criticism, was nearing mental exhaustion. She adored Goldie and the puppies, but the constant pressure and judgment were becoming unbearable. She developed an anxiety about leaving the house, feeling the disapproving stares of her neighbors. Witnessing her parents' torment, Emily could sense the growing tension and knew she had to do something. Emily, seeing the strain on her parents and the growing unease in the neighborhood, resolved to intervene. She decided to launch her own investigation, determined to uncover the truth about where Goldie was finding the puppies and put an end to the escalating conflict. The resourceful girl spent hours sitting by the living room window, observing Goldie's movements, hoping to follow her on her next expedition. She kept a detailed notebook, sketching maps and recording the times Goldie left and returned. She even started packing a small backpack with water, a snack, and a flashlight, just in case her investigation led her on a longer trek than she anticipated. Meanwhile, Goldie seemed completely oblivious to the chaos and speculation swirling around her. She continued to care for the puppies with unwavering love, playing with them, grooming them, and displaying her feline instincts with joyful abandon. It was astonishing to see the puppies trying to imitate Goldie's movements, clumsily attempting to groom themselves with their tiny paws, just like their adoptive mother. The whole scene was a heartwarming blend of interspecies affection, a testament to the power of love and acceptance. Then, one evening, when the tension in the Reynolds household had reached its breaking point, a loud knock echoed through the house. David, his face pale with apprehension, cautiously opened the front door. Standing on the porch was a uniformed law enforcement officer, accompanied by a small group of worried-looking neighbors. The officer, his expression stern but not unkind, announced that he needed to discuss Goldie and the puppies. The Reynolds family, their hearts pounding with fear and uncertainty, welcomed the officer and the neighbors into their home. They had no idea how this unwelcome visit would end, but they were determined to defend Goldie and her extraordinary household to the very end. They knew in their hearts that Goldie had done nothing wrong, that she was simply acting on her natural instincts, driven by an overwhelming love for those defenseless puppies. The officer made his way into the living room, where Goldie was peacefully resting in a large wicker basket, surrounded by her 5 adopted puppies. Even the usually stoic law enforcement officer couldn't help but crack a small smile at the sight. He knelt down, carefully scrutinizing Goldie and the puppies, his initial skepticism slowly giving way to a sense of wonder. He questioned the Reynolds family about the puppies' origins, asking them to recount everything they knew. David and Susan, their voices trembling with anxiety, explained the entire story, from Goldie's initial rescue of the first puppy to the subsequent arrival of the others. They emphasized Goldie's unwavering devotion to the pups, her tireless efforts to care for them, and the remarkable bond that had formed between them. At that moment, Emily, who had remained silent until then, stepped forward, her voice filled with conviction. She shared her observations of Goldie, describing how the cat frequently wandered toward the abandoned house on the edge of town. She explained her suspicions that the puppies might be coming from that location, and her determination to uncover the truth. Intrigued by Emily's insights, the officer decided to investigate the lead. Accompanied by David, he left for the old house, leaving Susan and Emily behind to care for Goldie and the puppies, their hearts filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. An hour later, David and the officer returned, their faces etched with grave expressions. They had discovered an ailing, emaciated stray mother dog in the forsaken house, who had recently given birth to a litter of puppies. The poor creature was too weak and ill to tend to her young ones, leaving them vulnerable and alone. Suddenly, everything started to make sense. Goldie, driven by her powerful maternal instincts, wasn't abducting the puppies, she was rescuing them from certain death. She had been bringing them home one at a time, understanding that it was impractical to move them all simultaneously. She was a hero, a true testament to the boundless capacity for love and compassion that exists within the animal kingdom. Word of Goldie's heroic act of saving the orphaned puppies quickly swept through the town, melting the hearts of even the most skeptical residents. The local perspective toward the Reynolds family and Goldie underwent a dramatic paradigm shift. The neighbors who had once been suspicious and critical now rallied around them, offering their support and assistance in any way they could. The kind-hearted local vet offered to treat the mother dog free of charge, providing her with the medical care and nourishment she desperately needed. Meanwhile, Goldie continued to nurture the puppies, showering them with her unwavering love and affection. The Reynolds family watched in amazement as their beloved cat lovingly cared for her foster pups, bridging the gap between species and inspiring a community to come together in support of a common cause. Goldie's remarkable story spread like wildfire, capturing widespread attention online. Internet users from all over the world praised her compassion and selflessness, hailing her as a symbol of hope and inspiration. As the mother dog slowly recovered and prepared to reunite with her young ones, everyone waited with bated breath to see Goldie's reaction. But the wise feline, understanding the natural order of things, exhibited remarkable wisdom and grace, permitting the biological mother to bond with her puppies while still assuming the role of a loving guardian, staying close to them and offering her support whenever needed. This heartwarming narrative not only transformed the lives of Goldie and the little pups, but also had a profound impact on the entire community. People started treating each other with more kindness, reaching out to their neighbors, and offering help to those in need. The local animal shelter recorded an unprecedented number of cat adoptions, as people were inspired by Goldie's story to open their hearts and homes to animals in need. Goldie became a symbol of how caring instincts and affection can arise in the most unexpected situations, and how even the smallest act of kindness can have a ripple effect, transforming lives and building stronger communities. If you found Goldie's heartwarming story with the puppies touching, please share it with your friends and family. We would love to hear your thoughts on Goldie's heroic actions and how she inspired her entire community. Do you think Goldie's love and compassion can teach us something valuable? Don't hesitate to leave a comment below and let us know your feelings. Your story could be a source of encouragement for others. Thank you for taking the time to read and spread this message of love. I hope this encourages people to share and comment on the story.